Wreckage of the Titan submersible, which imploded while exploring the wreck of the Titanic, has been recovered and brought back to shore. 5 people died when the Titan broke apart close to the sea floor.
In an astonishing twist of events, the unexplainable disappearance of the Titan submarine has left experts and scientists utterly dumbfounded. The U.S. Coast Guard has just received baffling signals from the depths of the North Atlantic while on the urgent quest for the missing submersible. Earlier, U.S. and Canadian officials intensified their search in the vicinity of the legendary Titanic wreck. With the clock ticking down on the 5 souls trapped within the submarine and their dwindling supply of oxygen. However, a millisecond implosion took 5 lives in an instant. Now, what did the scientists find in that deep grave? Our correspondent Namir Iqbal from Newfoundland reports that the Navy has pulled out all the stops, even involving private firms equipped to carry out deep-sea rescue missions. The Titan, one of the most questionable submersibles of all time, is a terrifying sight to behold in its last captured images. The vessel embarked on its fateful journey to the Atlantic depths, only to fade into oblivion. It's a unique vessel crafted to accommodate 5 persons without any external emergency openings. Until something went horrifyingly wrong. Experts who have analyzed the situation believe that a catastrophic hull implosion is likely the issue. They cite the carbon fiber hull design and the unusual silence from the submarine as indicators of a major incident. Now, with the discovery of the debris field, there is an urgent need for expert scrutiny. It's important to note that the Titanic's resting site is littered with multiple shipwrecks, making identification of the debris critical. Nestled deep within the blue and seemingly infinite Atlantic Ocean, the mighty RMS Titanic came to rest after her tragic, ill-fated maiden voyage in 1912. Since the Titanic's demise over a century ago, the world's fascination with this maritime catastrophe has led to countless expeditions to the site where the unsinkable ship sank into the depths of the ocean. Now, if you find yourself asking, how far beneath the waves does the wreckage of the Titanic lie? You're not alone. To fully grasp the enormous depths involved, let's recount the initial journey of the Titanic. In 1912, the big ship called RMS Titanic sailed for the first time. It started from Southampton, England, and was headed for New York City. The ship was supposed to travel across the big ocean, stopping at Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, Ireland along the way. But it never made it to New York. Instead, something very bad happened when it was carrying around 2,240 people. On a cold night in April 1912, the big ship hit a massive iceberg in the cold waters of the ocean. After it hit the iceberg, about 1,500 people sadly died when the ship broke in two and sank to the bottom of the sea. This happened in a part of the ocean near Newfoundland, Canada. That's called Iceberg Alley. Big chunks of ice from Greenland float around here. These big ice chunks travel through Iceberg Alley between Labrador and Newfoundland during spring and summer. Ever wonder how massive the iceberg that hit the Titanic was? Towering between 50 and 100 feet high. But it's not easy to size up an iceberg, and some of its secrets remain locked in history. Born in the frigid, remote corners of the Earth's poles, icebergs are the offspring of gargantuan glaciers. Just like rivers made of ice reaching out to the sea, glaciers eventually give in to the constant pull of the ocean and break apart into what we call icebergs. But these massive chunks of ice are not all the same. They come in various shapes and sizes, like a beautiful collection of patterns. Each one tells a unique story of how it traveled from the polar regions. The humblest of the lot are the growlers, petite in their demeanor, rarely reaching beyond 3 feet in height and 16 feet in length. In contrast, the Burgy bits seemed like towering giants, their stature varying between 3 and 45 feet high. On the larger end of the scale, the medium-sized icebergs loom ominously around 50 to 150 feet high. And the grandest of them all, the large icebergs rise like titanic monuments from the sea, standing an astonishing 150 to 250 feet high. Yet the iceberg that will forever live in infamy is the one that met the Titanic on that ill-fated night. This was not your typical iceberg, but an extraordinary behemoth referred to survivors as the Black Berg. And it was said to be a terrifying sight, standing between 50 to 100 feet high, a brooding silhouette in the starlit night. This massive black iceberg got its color not because of anything special, but because of a simple, natural process. Salt water entering its many cracks, getting rid of air bubbles and making it look dark and threatening. This cold and impressive sight showed how nature's icy sculptures can be both powerful and beautiful in their own unpredictable way. The Titanic's collision with the iceberg wasn't just a bad stroke of luck. It was a terrifying high-speed crash. When the ship rammed into the iceberg, it was moving at a speedy 25 miles per hour. For a massive ship, that's quite fast. The impact caused major damage, cracking open 300 feet of the ship's side and flooding multiple compartments. What's even scarier is that the Titanic had been warned about 6 icebergs that day. Other nearby ships saw these icy dangers and tried to let the Titanic know. However, the crew didn't fully understand the danger until it was too late. It was a lot like what happened with the makeshift submersible, where many former employees and people were warned about it. One person even was fired from the company for telling the truth. But the owner never listened, and never wanted to, in his own words, break the rules. Those rules led him to a terrifying death underwater. So, when lookout Frederick Fleet saw the deadly iceberg, it was already 11:30 p.m., and the Titanic was barreling ahead at full speed. So the tale of the Titanic isn't just about a collision with an iceberg, it's a story of speed and ice, warnings ignored, and a dark, silent giant lurking in the North Atlantic night. The Titanic's trouble was noticed. The Carpathia, another ship, came to help the survivors. This ship made it back to New York on April 18th, and it brought 705 people who were rescued from the lifeboats. To understand where the Titanic was when it sank, think about this. It was about 380 miles southeast from Newfoundland, and it was about 1,300 miles east from New York City. Even today, most of the Titanic's remains are about 350 miles away from Newfoundland. Robert Ballard, a famous explorer of the sea, first found the Titanic's remains in 1985. He went back 20 years later to see how the wreck was changing because of, time and ocean currents. But just how far down is the Titanic? The ship's remnants now lie at an astonishing depth of about 12,500 feet, nestled within the silent, dark abyss of the ocean floor. A sprawling debris field surrounds the ship's broken bow and stern, a grim reminder of the disaster that occurred above. The ship's fragments are scattered over an area more than 2,600 feet wide, like a ghostly underwater graveyard of sorts. This underwater tomb has been the subject of numerous explorations and has been captured through the lens of multiple expeditions. Recently, the first comprehensive digital scan of the wreckage was released to the public, showcasing a haunting 3D representation of the sunken vessel. Magellan Limited, in collaboration with Atlantic Productions, accomplished this feat of deep-sea mapping. The submersible, operated by OceanGate Expeditions, was carrying 5 people to the wreckage site. These exploratory dives are not cheap, with each person paying a hefty sum of approximately $250,000 for the unique experience. The U.S. Coast Guard looked for the submarine around 900 miles off Cape Cod, place similar to the Titanic wreckage. They said that they couldn't contact the submarine on Sunday, about an hour and 45 minutes after the mission started. The crew that was missing had started their journey in a submarine called the Polar Prince. A British businessman, Hamish Harding, said on social media that he was joining the OceanGate expedition before leaving St. John, Newfoundland. Some of the crew members on the missing submarine had dived to the Titanic more than 30 times before, showing how dedicated, how brave they were. Harding's message said that this expedition might be the only time people go down to the Titanic in 2023, because Newfoundland was having its worst winter in 40 years. But they were prepared to dive since the weather was expected to get better, not knowing that they would soon become part of a big rescue mission. David Gallo, an oceanographer, had described the dangers of such deep-sea ventures as playing with fire. The harsh ocean environment magnified any minor error they made. The pressure was so severe that even a slight scratch in the equipment could have caused the ocean to crush it like an empty paper cup. The reality of this eventuality was sinking in. Many years later, the likely starting point for the search had been the Titan's last known location, near the Titanic wreck. However, without finding the Titan, the real reason for this perplexing situation remained unknown. Indeed, this drama that unfolded beneath the waves truly illustrated that there were areas on our own planet as mysterious and enigmatic as the furthest reaches of the universe. If you chose to take that submarine route, you would face a world of incredible depth and mystery, with a controller and an unconventional submarine helm in your hands. Preparing for this journey had been like no walk in the park. Wearing a safety suit for dire situations had been like performing a complicated dance, especially under intense heat. Yet that was only the beginning. Your training had ended there. Many people have already taken the risky route and shared their experiences. Communication, or its lack thereof, had been a consistent issue for past adventurers during their 4 dives with OceanGate. The rare and quiet sounds from the deep were inconsistent or completely gone. Yet they didn't blame the team, but rather the nature of the vast depths. When they dived into a world of 1,000 or 13,000 feet below, the lines of communication would weaken and break, leaving only infrequent contact, if any at best. The adventurers had explored the underwater area with little or no information. The submarine was kept secret before their trip, and it was the company's website provided very minimal details. They were surprised to find that their journey depended on a cheaper version of an Xbox game controller, a Logitech controller. Additionally, they were astonished to learn that the ballast of the submarine was made from recycled plumbing pipes. All of this came as a shock considering that they had paid $250,000 for the experience. And then there was Stockton Rush, the CEO and designer of the submarine, an inventor who liked everyday items for their cost-effectiveness and their usefulness. The submarine's parts, from its lights to its handles and its propellers, were all commercially available, put together in productions that cost millions. The pressure vehicle, the core of the submarine that held the crew members, was a creation of Rush and NASA/UW. "This is as secure as it can get," he reassured. Even if the power failed or the propeller stopped, survival was guaranteed. The vessel's hatch locked the crew inside with outside bolts and 18 bolts around the edge. 17 held it tightly. The 18th bolt might seem unnecessary, but it had its place anyways. The main worry here, the biggest fear, was the crew surfacing alive but running out of air, stuck in their underwater pod. After the Titan submarine disaster, scientists shared the horrifying moments of its collapse. And the experts painted a chilling picture of the explosions that tragically claimed the lives of 5-member crew who were exploring the wreckage of the Titanic. As the shocking news of the Titan's sub-loss came in, guesses about the crew's final moments stirred up controversy. According to Dr. Dale Mole, a retired Navy doctor, the crew's end would have been quick and thankfully painless. "One moment you're alive, and the next you're gone. Like a switch had been turned off," he explained. The whole world was dealing with the loss of 5 explorers who set out on the daring mission to the Titanic's final resting place at the bottom of the Atlantic, which ironically would become theirs as well. Amongst the victims were Ocean Gate Expedition CEO, the Titan sub's owner, Shahzada Dawood, his son, Suleiman Dawood, British explorer Hamish Harding, and Titanic expert Paul Henry Nargolet. The heartbreaking end of the tireless 5-day search destroyed all hopes, as it was confirmed that nobody on board had survived. According to Dr. Mole's judgment, the crew probably wouldn't have known about the disaster happening to them. An explosion is an outward shockwave, while an implosion makes the pressure wave move inward, he explained. The squeezed deep in this giant watery grave is so powerful. It's like D&D, where you have these massive godlike entities, and it's just like one of them reached their fist down and crushed it. The ocean's weight is so heavy that it begins to make the human body change in weird, surprising ways. First, parts of the body filled with air, lungs, ears, nose, they feel the squeeze. They shrink under the pressure, becoming smaller and smaller until they're as dense as the water around them. Next, the skin, which was once soft and stretchy, becomes hard. It sticks closely to the bones, looking pale and thin. The eyes, which used to be clear, become cloudy as the pressure pushes the liquid away, leaving only dim circles behind. The blood vessels, which used to be full of life, now shrink as well, folding in on themselves like empty tubes. The heart, which used to be strong and lively, is squeezed and crushed and wringed out until it becomes hard and still. At the same time, changes start to happen in the body's cells, which, as you may know, are the tiny building blocks of life. The liquid inside these cells starts to become thicker because of the pressure. The walls of the cells start to bend, fold, then break down, making the cells all blend together into a solid lump. But the body doesn't break apart. Instead, it changes in a strange and scary way, crushed by the heavy pressure of the deep sea in ways that are not just like squeezing the person, it's like squeezing the person from every part of the person. Over time, the body starts to look more like a human fossil, a creepy work of art made by the ocean's invisible hand. It's as if the body had become a part of the deep sea that took it, a ghostly reminder of a life lived on land. A body that implodes in the deep sea shows us how weak human life can be against the powerful forces of our planet. It's a creepy display of how strong and ruthless the ocean can be, a sign that nature is always stronger than us. Now, imagine all of that sequence is happening in milliseconds. Scientists are puzzled by the recent discoveries regarding this submarine disaster. The Titan submersible was armored with a sealed pod and pressurized gas system to protect the passengers in the pressure chamber. The failure of the carbon fiber cylinders in the pressure vessel could have instigated the implosion. This catastrophe would have been sudden, and it would have been brutal, with high-pressure water flooding into the submersible, tearing apart the hull and crushing the unfortunate inhabitants. Imagine a gigantic soda can, as big as an adult. When that's empty, it can easily support the weight of a full-grown person without any difficulty. However, if you were to apply a sideways force, just a small sideways force, it would immediately crumble and collapse. That illustrates how susceptible it is to lateral forces that cause it to cave in. Now picture an unseen force that exerts intense internal pressure, causing things to collapse inward. In this unfortunate scenario, the vast and the powerful ocean acts as a silent antagonist. The pressure at the depth where the Titanic rests is equivalent to an incredible 6,000 pounds per square inch, which is about 12,500 feet below the water's surface. If the protective hull of the ship were to exhibit even the tiniest sign of weakness, the immense pressure of the ocean would rush in, resulting in a catastrophic collapse and unleashing a powerful shockwave. Similar to an explosion, an implosion can be equally and extremely destructive, causing widespread devastation in its aftermath. Many rescuers were looking for what was left of the improvised submarines, enduring a unique experience. At a depth of 2,500 feet under the sea, they found themselves surrounded by complete darkness, enveloped by an eerie quietness that only the deep ocean can offer. Their submarine's lights could hardly break through the gloom, revealing only a small bit of what was around them, while their sonar stretched out like an unseen hand, reaching 246 feet. In these conditions, looking for the ship was like trying to find a tiny needle in a massive, dark haystack. What really helped them was the guidance from above, telling them to go left and right, creating an image of their surroundings with little bits of information and making their own good guesses. After a very long hour and a half, they finally saw the ship on their radar. The feeling that rushed through them was a mix of relief and excitement, making it one of the most unforgettable moments of their lives. And the stories keep reaching the spotlight, among them the French explorer P.H. Nargeolet. The story that reached the spotlight was a man who had faced danger in this scary Titanic tomb almost 40 times. Nargeolet knew the ship well, leading them through what was left of the Titanic, a name that resonated throughout history and filled people with a dark fascination. His experienced eyes highlighted every detail, pointing out parts that had survived the test of time and others that had given in to decay. Their journey took them to the heart of the ship, the control room, the officers' quarters, the bridge, all standing as quiet reminders of a time long gone. Once a sign of the ship's grandness, the grand staircase was now nothing more than a big hole between the floors. A sad reminder of the ship's violent journey towards its watery grave. A creepy feeling washed over him, like looking into the empty eyes of a ghost. His childhood fascination with the Titanic was now coming true. Every movie, every documentary he'd ever watched about the ship was coming to life before his eyes. The question remained, what mysteries does this enormous ship still hold? Unfortunately, some explorers never found out that answer, as it happened to have cost them their lives. What secrets do you think the scientists will uncover in their search for the wreckage? And how might these findings reshape our understanding of the Titanic's haunting legacy? Share your thoughts in the comment section down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, I'm out of here. Later.